Hello, everybody. Welcome back to It's a DARMAR podcast. Today, I have JUDE SMITH. He's a great concept designer that designs some brilliant characters. He says he's a concept designer, but he specializes in characters. He has been working in a respawn, and I have been following his work. It has been more than 5 years. We talk from time to time, and I really enjoy how he blends shapes on the characters and how he improvises on them. Hi, Jude.
Hey, how's it going?
It's very cool here. How about you? How is life?
Good, good. Just getting into the normal schedule, I guess, going into the winter. But yeah, everything's good. Just drawing a lot these days.
Yeah, I mean, uh, it has been a tremendous era for all of us designers in last 5 years. I must say that, and we have been designing some really cool stuff and evolving as artists. Now we
Yeah.
have. I will start immediately with a hard subject. The first one is, when did you start to draw?
Oh, so my grandmother is a painter, and I was always introduced to the arts at a pretty young age because of her. And every time we'd go visit, she had a home studio, and she would leave out paints and crafts for me and my siblings. So I was very interested in the arts early on, um, and because of her. But it wasn't till I was like a teenager where I found like the art of Star Wars, like most concept artists' origin stories, um, and that's when that blew my mind, seeing that art was used to was used to create film and give video games and um, was used for like entertainment art, and so that kind of made me pivot a little bit and want to try drawing digitally. So I was drawing digitally for a little while as a teenager, but really didn't take it seriously until college.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me. Most of the artists, how they started, they saw Star Wars. That Star
Yeah,
Wars has a lot of energy. It has shaped the whole generation, not just artists, but the whole generation of people. And for
yeah.
me, it's always fascinating, when I hear that. You said your grandmother was an artist. What kind of artist?
So she does a lot of like acrylic painting, very abstract kind of work. Um, a lot of like figures, but very bright, bold colors. She was really inspired by artists like Mark Rothko. So her style is kind of in a similar fashion.
Okay, cool, cool. I can see in your characters when I look at them. Maybe it's
Mm.
just what I see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to ask it. I see that painterly style when you do it. There is
Uh,
painterly style. And did you naturally evolve towards it because of watching your work of your grandmother, or did that happen by yourself? How did that go?
yeah, I think definitely to a degree because I grew up wanting to paint in acrylics and I painted in oils as well for a long time and took a lot of like painting classes. My parents were very supportive of my interest in the arts and always, had me dabbling in some sort of painting class. Um, so I think that kind of has bled into my work now, where even the characters and stuff that I design now, I try to retain that kind of painterly quality to it, really like earthy tones and texture. Um, so that definitely carries with me and has had a big influence.
Okay. What did you study? You went to CCS, if I remember, or I'm wrong?
I went to the Art Institute.
Art Institute. Okay. Was it something connected to game design, or it was industrial? What did you study?
So I have a degree in animation, and it was kind of at the time it was the best option for me. So that's kind of why I went to that school. It was close to where um, it was fairly close to where I live, and there was family nearby. So I went to the Art Institute and I studied animation for 3 years. Um, But I kind of always knew that I wanted to do concept art. So every class that I had, I would just kind of I would kind of just gear the classwork that I was doing towards more concept art kind of work.
Okay. Many artists, when they start later than they think they were supposed to start, they say, I wasted my time. Do you think that you wasted that time when you were there? Because I have different logic, but I would like you to answer because you are my guest today. I'm very curious what you think about it because I have heard people go to wrong university, wrong when I say wrong, not what they wanted, but
Yeah.
you specifically chose how I heard you chose animation, but you knew that you're gonna go into concept art. So yeah,
Um, I I mean, the Art Institute is not a good school. I can't say I learned a whole ton going there. There was one teacher that I had that was good, but he taught like the beginner level, like digital painting courses and stuff. So I only really grasped so much out of college. It's a ton of money too, so I totally understand people who don't really find or see the benefits of it. Um, and really, I don't think I really gleaned too much out of it. It was the degree that helped a ton, though, because um, when you're starting out, especially if you plan to like immigrate to another country, having the degree is a big benefit and will help you through immigration. And I don't know if I would have ended up in Vancouver, um, where I'm at now, if I hadn't had that degree. So it's expensive to pay for a degree, but it that did help me a little bit. But other than that, I don't know. I have a little bit of a beef with how art schools these days are kind of run. I think there's a big disconnect between art schools and studios and what it's actually like working for studios. I think a lot of art schools just they just want to make money and they just churn out student after student that aren't really maybe qualified to find work or don't have really a clear idea of how to find work. So um, I think I think if you do want to go to school, you really got to do your research and maybe look at like specialty schools.
yeah, that's very true. I like what you said that it's easier to get papers because I'm very aware about that, and I think it's a great investment if you ask me because it serves your whole life. You can move
Sure.
whenever you want. But I don't know what to think about the schools. School is there to give the pillars for the starting of the house, but then later everything is in the career. I haven't
Yeah.
progressed. If I didn't learn after the school, I don't know how good would I be. I talked with
Yeah.
John Hagrives and I talked with John Fry. They were previous guests, and
Mhm.
we agreed on one thing. When it comes to game design, 3D modeling, you can learn that kind of thing in 3 years, but
Yeah.
design is a very complex beast. 4 years is not enough to learn it. You can just
No.
stretch it in 4 years.
Yeah. No. And like, I wasn't even good enough to find work coming out of college. I did well in college. Like, I graduated at the top of my class, but um, but I when I graduated, I was kind of reaching out to a few artists to see what their thoughts were on my portfolio. And they were, I'm very thankful that they were very honest and clear with me about like where they felt I was and some steps that I needed to take to kind of close the gap between, being a student and trying to reach a professional level. Um, and I spent over like a year. It was like a year and a half of just every evening, just working on my portfolio, rebuilding everything, and applying all over again to places to get my foot in the door. And I think a lot of the times students, have this misconception that college is just going to open the door into whatever company they want to work at. Um, but the truth is it's all on you, and it's probably going to be some time of working outside of class and working outside of your normal 9 to 5, and trying to bridge that gap between your being a student and becoming a professional, and it can take years, and you have to be self-disciplined and really dedicated to it, and I think that was what carried me into finding work eventually.
Yeah, that's a great advice because yeah, students think we all thought that. I thought that also. Once you are there, that's it. I am breaking the door and entering the industry. Then you
Yeah,
realize that you're still on not that high level, and the industry is really fast, really high level required. Plus, there is also one more thing which I will never understand how that was created, but that's we need you to have work experience. And
yeah,
I still don't understand how that system was created because it's very strange. How do I get experience if I don't get internship? And how do I get what do I do? I still don't understand how I entered the industry. It happened by doing a really good work, but I'm
yeah.
thinking, how the hell was that supposed to be solved? So it's very interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I remember those early days because I you and me kind of are from the same. I feel like generation of artists. Like I remember finding your work early on when I was starting out, and um, back when you were even like I think starting your book originally,
Yeah,
um, and those days I remember just I would take any kind of job like it sometimes, and I'm not like saying like people should work for free, but I would take literally anything that I could put on a resume to say that I had experience and beef up my portfolio. So yeah, it is funny, although a little bit of a, I guess, pro tip here. It really comes down to the artwork. I think the when companies list like experience, usually that's a deterrent to try to keep people who aren't qualified or are still like students from applying. But really, they just want to see good work.
yeah. Excellent point. Excellent point about that because one more thing I always forget. Because I always talk with the very professional people in this industry, and I try to be professional. And now, when you mentioned that, I remember when I was in car design. Car design and concept art are very similar to many steps. And I
Hmm.
remember getting portfolios, and it was a horrible time to be a car designer. There was
Yeah,
400 portfolios, one person taken, and I never knew until I saw the portfolios because I was choosing a designer and 350 portfolios were people that had no clue what they were doing. And I'm not talking about designers that are bad, I'm talking about horrible sketches. Uh, People that are not designers, they just sent it because they saw companies hiring. So there
yeah,
was only 50 of them really designers and maybe five that were good. And for me, that was a shocker. That was a shocker because when you open art station and stuff like that, you're like, everybody is great.
yeah,
That's my
yeah.
connection. Sorry.
I've definitely seen like random applications of once we had someone who they were like a painter and they submitted like oil paintings and stuff, and we were that was a really confusing application to look at, and we didn't even know how this person like the found the job listing to begin with, but um, and then, as well too, like for like big companies, I think sometimes there's a little bit of like a disconnect between recruiters and the art team. So what a recruiter might see as experience isn't maybe the same thing that an art director would see as experience. So, um, art is a very um, subjective thing, and so unless recruiters really understand that, um, you just want to get your work in front of the art team really.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes that's very true. Recruiters are mostly not people who are educated in art, but they get to
Mhm.
list what they require. However, they are the first people on the door, but they have different qualities. Maybe they are not educated in arts, but they are educated in people, and I think it's a really good gatekeeping to come to an art director by passing them. And you mentioning the painters and thing, I always remember there was a TV show on Discovery Channel, and it was about Ferrari Enzo when they were designing. Ken Okuyama, which was a designer who got that
Mhm.
job to work, he sent a portfolio of 300 pages, but none of them was a drawing of a car. It was
Wow.
drawing mechs of robots and so on. And
Yeah.
when Ferrari saw it, they already knew who is Ken because his name was very known. But they didn't
Interesting.
know that he does all of this stuff behind, and they were so impressed with him that they took him out of 1,000 people.
Wow. That's a crazy story.
Yeah, Ken got a job like that. I remember still that video. For me, it was fascinating, you know. But then what happens? Discovery didn't tell that story good because, after all, Discovery is not purpose for us designers. It was purpose for much wider public. And then when a
Yeah.
wider public watches it, they were like, "Ah, yeah, he had a talent, but he was different with this." And nobody understands that Ferrari didn't see the talent; they saw hard work. They saw
Yeah.
hard work. Do you think, let's talk about talent. I want to talk about that with you. Do you think it's a very important factor or not? How do you perceive it? Where it can lead you? That's my questions, you know.
I think like talent is a mindset, and it's something that you nurture. You know, everybody grows up in a different environment, so you're kind of conditioned to lean one way or another. But I think when it comes to art, I think anybody can do it. It's just having the right mindset and being able to nurture it and tap into it. I've seen people switch careers completely and go into art, and become, a massive success. And then there's other people like myself who have always loved art and, dabbled in it to a degree. So, I don't think it's like it's just like a natural ability. Only some people have it and others don't. I think it's a mindset, and it's just something that you have to nurture.
Yeah, mindset is very important, not to give up when it becomes hard. And it will become hard in art. There is no question about it.
It's extremely hard, and it's extremely competitive. Um, and I feel for a lot of people with the AI wave too, because I feel like that is going to be a crutch for a lot of younger artists who um, maybe don't have the mindset or discipline to go through the motions of becoming a good artist. Like it takes a ton of experience and time, and to kind of develop your taste and style and figure things out your own way. Um, so I think like the whole AI wave is just going to kind of is going to be a crutch for new artists. And I think the whole AI wave too kind of shows how the public's view of art kind of really is. I think the general public doesn't seem to care or understand when they look at AI art. They're not like really aware of what it is. Um, and I think that kind of shows, I don't know, a little bit of why art is so difficult, because we don't. I think outside of our field, people just don't really understand it.
Yeah, yeah, they don't understand it, but that's because they are not educated in it. Nobody educates them how it is to be an artist, and it's cemented in the heads of the people that their first contact with art is drawing with crayons, and it stays like that. That it's something cheap, that it's
Yeah,
something very easy if you're talented. but I wish they were more educated, but they are not. And that's
Yeah,
normal because I'm not educated into something else. I'm not educated. And I wish there was education to tell them how hard it is because they would respect it more. And the first wave of AI for me is not AI, but NFT. NFT
yeah,
showed the really bad future for the art. Everybody was mesmerized by it. I was more afraid of it. So
hmm
it's now when you mention AI, that's the most popular topic out there, and I don't know what to think anymore.
yeah. I at this point just try to keep my head down and continue like drawing and enjoying what I'm doing. I think the whole NFT craze and the AI wave that's happening has kind of just shown sort of the ugly side of like the way the art world can be sometimes. And I think it also just shows how much the arts are kind of undervalued. I think when people say that artists are gatekeeping or you know it takes talent to be an artist, I think it undervalues what we do, because then they're not realizing how much time and effort and experience goes into creating the work that we do.
Let's be honest, nobody's gatekeeping anything. I mean,
Yeah,
we are artists. We can say that.
anyone
No,
can pick up a pencil and
sorry,
draw.
sorry, I didn't hear you because we overlapped.
I was just saying, like, yeah, of course not, because anybody can pick up a pencil and draw. Like, there's no gatekeeping.
There is no gatekeeping. I mean, I said it and I will say it again. AI art can be said that it's art because for
Mm,
me, everything is art. But it's not okay to steal other people's work.
yeah,
That's the difference. It's unwritten rule of art that we don't kid bash and put other people's work over our work because the industry will call us out. And
yeah,
for me, that's stealing. Yeah.
yeah. I made that point earlier on when the whole AI thing was happening, because I'm sure, like, you remember back in the day when like anybody was like, you know, was like caught bashing other people's work into their pieces. It would cause like a whole uproar. People would get blacklisted, and I just found it funny that now with AI, it's essentially doing exactly that. But then you have people just acting like it's not a big deal, and um, I don't know. It's such a weird kind of moment in the industry right now, and I don't even really know how to move forward because it's clear it's not going anywhere. But um, yeah, there needs to be some sort of regulations around it.
Yeah, there has to be regulations. The thing is, who are the biggest supporters of AI? When you analyze it, you realize that the biggest supporters are people who don't have job, who have not worked, very young, who
Yeah,
have not experienced life still. They are the biggest supporters of it because
yeah,
it gives you possibility to avoid life. You just type in the prompt and you avoid life with many things. The second biggest supporters are the artists that never created anything in art.
yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
matter why. Maybe they're not talented, maybe they didn't work enough, but they are bitter because of it.
Mhm.
And those are the two waves of AI artists. And it's super interesting to watch them, how they behave, because I will tell you openly, because of their behavior, most of them never became big artists.
Yeah, no, that's true, and it's just lazy, and it's it's not creating anything new. I haven't been impressed by any AI art that I've seen. So, at least for now, I don't feel like too threatened by it, and I just am going to keep drawing and enjoying the work that I'm doing. So,
Yeah. My question is since you knew from the early age what you want to do, then it evolved. And then eventually you came to characters.
Yeah.
Was that something that you knew I'm going to be a character concept artist, or you explored in between? How did that go?
So I feel like I made the very um, concept artist early, like on mistakes, where in the beginning I was very much a generalist. Um, I wanted to do I wanted to show that I could do like everything. So my portfolio was like showing fantasy, it was showing sci-fi characters, environments, props. It was a little bit of everything, and um, I it was good enough that I got my foot in the door with my first studio gig. Um, but after a while, I was feeling like I was plateauing as an artist, and there was this workshop um, uh, in Seattle that I went to. It was a massive black workshop, and I went to go speak with Marco Durovic because I knew he. Um, I really admired his work, and he's had a pretty big influence on me just with his whole the Genesis IP that he does. Um, and I knew that he would be pretty blunt and honest with me about my work, just kind of knowing his reputation in the industry. Um, and when I showed him my work, he was not impressed at all. He he really like ripped into my portfolio, and I went back I went back home and started like focusing more on on kind of the things he had talked about, which were he was basically saying that he felt like I had no identity when he looked at my portfolio, that I was all over the place when it came to like the subjects. He was saying that there was too much detail, everything was very rendered and had no like focus in my portfolio. And at the time, I was working on this Marvel mobile game, and they had pivoted me into characters. So I started doing my own characters and listening to Marco's feedback. I was like, okay, like how do I tell a story? How do I explain who a character is simply by drawing a character without it being in a scene, without it being in an environment? Because one of Marco's biggest feedbacks were to me were that I should start building my work on around a story. Everything should be based on a story. Think about the purpose, where they're from, who they are. So I was thinking about those things with my personal work and just focusing on characters, just really narrowing down my ideas. And so when I started doing that, my work started taking off more, and I started getting different companies started reaching out more, and were showing more interest on me working on other projects. And that's when my work really kind of took off. So um, that's pretty much how I like pivoted into characters. And then by the time Respawn reached out, um, you know, Respawn's a huge team. I work on Apex, so there's like 22 ish concept artists in house. So the teams are really big, and when you end up in AAA in house, you usually kind of become a specialist. So I pretty much just worked right into becoming like a character concept artist because of that. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's a very interesting point. Marko Đurđević is an expert at the characters. He is
yeah,
very good. Shout out to him. And
yeah,
it's very cool that you understood that you need to describe the character with just a drawing.
hmm
Many artists get lost in pinpointing that. Whether is it in a hand, whether is it in the thinking, whether is it in an eye. There is always something in those three coordination that doesn't work. And
Yeah.
it's very cool that you figured it out immediately after Marco pinpointed it, because many people require a lot of digestion. They need to digest it. Sometimes it's an ego, sometimes it's just stubbornness, because it's not easy when somebody tells you that something is bad.
Yeah.
How do you accept the critic? How did you learn to accept the critic?
I just, at the time, I was just really eager to learn more, and I was just willing to embrace the feedback that was given to me. Um, and and even though that portfolio review was super rough, it was the best advice, and I'm really thankful that Marco gave it to me because I just embraced what he said and took it seriously, and I think it helped me kind of really focus my work a little bit more. Um, so yeah, I think the moment you kind of embrace that you maybe aren't where you want to be, it allows you to kind of soak in the knowledge that's being given to you. And I just accepted what was said to me at the time because I was just really looking to get better.
Yeah, it's very important to get a critic and to accept it. Very important.
Yeah.
What is the thing now when you see the young artists, and I'm sure that you see from time to time some young artists and you talk with them, what is the thing that this generation struggles the most with? And I'm not talking about AI. I'm talking about here. Every generation has a different problems.
That's a good question. I don't know. Like this generation is so talented. It's really impressive to see like student work these days because they're so much better than I was when I was a student. Um, and with like YouTube and all these free or affordable courses that you can find, I feel like technique wise, students are way better than they were. I think really the biggest hurdles that I see are kind of the disconnect between, like we talked about earlier, that disconnect between what is actually expected of you when you get into, studio work, and how to bridge that gap between being a student and becoming a professional. I think seems to be really the biggest hurdle, and I'm not sure what the like solution is there. There needs to be more like open conversations about that maybe. But um, I think like Lightbox does a great job. They bring in studios to do talks and artists that do panels. Um, but there seems to be a lot of students looking for work, and it doesn't help that the industry is in kind of a rough state right now. But um, yeah, I think bridging that gap between student to professional is probably the biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, the industry is currently burning. I can officially say that.
Yeah, that's in a rough spot. I'm really thankful to be working and that video games is doing all right. But even in video games, it seems like every month there's another wave of layoffs. So
50% of layoffs so far, which
yeah,
is, since I have started in this industry, it hasn't been this bad.
yeah, it's been really rough.
And I'm seeing on Facebook posts that many people are looking for work. I mean, it will get better in next couple of months. It always does get better. There is no question about it. Just
Yeah,
this is the roughest position that the industry has been since I started, and that's 10 years ago.
yeah, and I think a lot of this is backlash too from the pandemic, where when the pandemic started, we had an influx of work. There was, you know, everybody was stuck at home, so there was tons of people looking for content and things to play. So, game sales were up by like 30%. So all these companies were feeling a lot of growth and were trying to expand their teams to accommodate this growth. Um, and then, of course, Now we've gone through that. People are going back to their normal schedules and day to day lives. And so, there's not, the demand isn't as high. And I think because of that, we're getting all these companies that, are making cuts because of this. And they're trying to, as always, churn profit sales. And so I think we're dealing with a little bit of like whiplash from that inflation early on. But as well as I do that there are ebbs and flows to this industry, and I don't think this will be forever. I think it will bounce back eventually.
I give it 3 more months that it will
You
start
think?
recovering, because Hollywood is also recovering. When Hollywood is recovering, everything is recovering. War in Palestine, Israel, war in Ukraine, Russia. It needs to the situation needs to calm down a little bit. It's the way it
Yeah,
is. It's unfortunate, but
yeah,
it's very bad for everybody currently. Hollywood, gaming, products. People are not investing anything because of that. Yesterday, I was checking the economy, not yesterday, 2 weeks ago. I was talking with John, and I was checking for my book because I'm self publishing it. I decided to go that route, and so on, so on.
mhm,
And I was checking my friend, which does economy. He's a businessman, really good one. And he always told me, if you want to see the economy of the world, check how much shipment is. Because in
mm,
shipment, you have everything: labor, uh, workers, gasoline, so on, interconnections between continents, and so on. And I checked one book to ship it from USA to, for example, Germany, Europe. We are talking about 200-page book, A4 art book. It's $41.
that's
It's
expensive.
more expensive than a book, literally.
Yeah,
The book is 45. This is
that's
41.
true. That's true. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's
only,
outrageous.
only, only 4 months ago, before this happened with Hollywood and everything, the shipment was between $15 and $20, which is triple.
Yeah,
So the world is not in a good place currently. It's unfortunate. I wish it was, but I'm happy to know I'm old enough now to know that it goes like this
yeah,
always. There will
that's
be a
true.
huge peak after it, and the artists will be in a great demand. There is no question about it always.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, it's the way it is. And you're doing characters. I want to pick it a
Mhm.
little bit apart. How do you think about the character? You said you think how to describe it so it shows the whole personality and everything. But can you dissect it a little bit more for me? The work process. How do you go from sketches to renders? How do you work with that?
Um, so so I keep my process pretty straightforward for the most part, especially when it comes to characters. I like to work in a lot of detail, so I because of that and trying to manage that and how much I like to render my materials and everything, I feel like I have to really streamline my process and simplify it as much as possible. So it's very straightforward. I just like loose sketches, line art, so that like I'm not thinking too much about anything else other than the design. Like I like how looking at like some of the like original like Disney character concepts, how like loose and gestural they are. I kind of taking that approach where I'm just focusing on the shapes, the forms, thinking through the design, and kind of just with line art. Sometimes I'll add flat colors in there and then I'll pitch my sketch or my sketches. And once that's selected, then I have like 2 weeks to render it out and do my turnaround. So it's very straightforward, um, really, when it comes to the technical process. But um, going into going into work, um, I put a ton of emphasis on the storytelling. Um, what is it I'm trying to say about this character? Thinking about where they're from, what their experiences might be, thinking about the detail hierarchy, what elements on the character are important that say something about who that character is, what their occupation might be, their personality, and figuring out that hierarchy, and then you know establishing the key focal points, and then what is like secondary and just supportive details. Um, so there is a lot of thought that goes into it in the beginning, and then I try to keep that process very simple and streamlined.
Okay. Is it mostly 2D or you use also 3D in the process?
Mostly 2D for characters. I don't use a lot of 3D. I will use 3D, like a little bit of Blender for when I'm doing like key art and stuff, just to like block out my scenes and add some like basic texture and lighting, and then I'll paint over it.
Okay, cool, cool. So my question is, the question would be, today many artists are jumping on 3D.
Hmm.
And for me, that's a good and a bad thing at the same time.
Sure.
Because 3D can be very restrictive if you are not educated in art.
Hmm.
And do you agree with that surfacing is quite hard in 3D compared to 2D? Because I have a feeling that you express your soul more, and especially in characters where they have to have personality.
Yeah, that's kind of why I personally don't use 3D when it comes to characters, is because they feel very stiff and rigid, and it's hard for me at least to make those poses feel very natural and balanced and have weight to them, where sometimes I find that 3D takes away that heaviness, or that kind of loose gestural feeling. um, so I think learning the fundamentals is key to everything, and then workflow in the long run really doesn't matter, because as long as those fundamentals are solid, you can apply any sort of workflow to it, and you will be able to create good artwork.
Yeah, fundamentals are everything. There is no question about it.
Yeah, and I like 3D a lot. I just find that sometimes when I'm in the moment, or I have a deadline that I have to get to quickly, it's just easier for me to paint things out. But I do like 3D, and I see the benefits of it a lot, especially with setting up scenes and lighting. It's great to have that resource to paint over. Um, but another thing too, like people are a lot of students always ask, what are the best workflows, and there's always been the 2D and 3D debate and so on. And um, the one thing that I've noticed throughout, I guess I've been in the industry for 7 years now, so I have a little bit of experience, but um, really workflow doesn't matter. I work on a big team with, I think I said 22 artists earlier. Um, we're a huge team, and every artist has a different workflow. Some of us are really 2D or only use 2D. Other of us are heavily into 3D, and the majority of their work is 3D and in Blender and 3D Code and ZBrush. Um, but at the end of the day, we all are on the same page and get to the same end result. Um, so I don't think it matters what kind of workflow you use. It's just figuring out what benefits you the most, how you like to approach things, how you like to be creative. Um, and as long as those fundamental skills are strong, like you can create anything.
Uh, there was 10 years ago, it was which brush are you using?
Yeah,
Which is the
yeah,
best brush? Then it evolved. It's always the same question, it just evolves in a
yeah,
different direction from time to time. Before it was
yeah,
which pen, then this, then that. Because people
yeah.
think
Now
that it's a magical brush, magical pen, and so on. But I always used to tell to them, and students didn't like the answer. It's not about the brush pen, it's about the painter.
Yeah.
And
And
it
now
really is. And it really is, because I know people that can literally draw with anything. They can use blood if they want, they will draw amazing drawing. It's
yeah,
about the user, how he or she or anybody else who uses it, and it's about them. It's about them expressing that. And for me,
exactly.
it's when you learn that, you understand there are no shortcuts. There are no
Yeah.
shortcuts. Whoever understands that there are no shortcuts in art will be successful in art.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody is always, I feel like in the beginning, people are quick to try to look for shortcuts, but you just got to embrace that it takes time. And, you know, the more you do it, the more you build experience, you the more you experiment too, the more you figure out what workflows you like, what styles you like, and you begin to filter all this knowledge, through your mind and your mentality, and and you begin to develop your own thoughts and style,
Okay.
um, yeah, over time.
Sorry, that's my blood sugar is ringing. I apologize.
All good,
I'm
all
back.
good.
Sorry, my bad. Okay, sorry for interrupting. I hate when my blood sugar does that. It rings my phone. I turned it off,
No,
but something happened as usual. Uh, I completely agree with that. And user is the most important thing in the world. And now we come
yeah,
back. Why did I push in that direction to the conversation? Because of AI.
yeah,
User is always the most important thing. So is the client.
yeah,
And for me, I know that AI has to be sanctioned. I'm using word sanctioned because no, not restricted is not the right word. Sanctioned,
yeah.
because user always needs to win at the end of the day, unless we're
Mhm.
gonna have a Terminator or something like that. So, Jude, my question for the end would be: the question is, what would you tell to the young designers and to yourself? What is the future for us?
Mm. I think right now, at least, if AI is still within, you know, the question of everything, um, I think it's really going to become important more and more so for us in the concept industry to look beyond concept art itself. Um, Craig Mullins had this great talk at Lightbox where he said that a lot of it's great to see the community we've built over time, but the community, we kind of always just look within the community when it comes to inspiration. Um, and if our community, the art world is vast, but if our little community is only this big and you're only looking within this community for inspiration, you're only going to grow so much. And I think with AI, it's sort of like a similar situation where AI is only as good as the work that it's been ripping from. And really, it's just a cheap knockoff of that. So I think artists are going to need to look beyond the norm that we kind of have bubbled ourselves into, look at art, from other cultures, from other themes, from other topics, genres, whatever it is, and um, and bring that into find use that inspiration in your own work, and find a way to be creative beyond just the normal art station kind of concept you already look, and um, that's how you'll be able to stand out and find your own creative voice. And I think as long as you're able to do that, you'll be in demand and people will be interested in what you're doing.
Yeah, voice is everything, right?
Yeah, we have to think bigger than just concept art.
So much more to see, so much more to explore.
Yeah. Storytelling is a great way. It's a good way to connect with people and an audience and to kind of voice your opinion. So that's a great way to like express yourself as an artist, as an individual.
Yeah. It was a pleasure, Jude, having you as a guest. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I would absolutely call you if not now, later. But I decided to call you now because I really wanted to hear your story. And I really enjoyed talking with you because it was very calm and elaborate. I can say it like that.
Good, good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you again, man.
I think that people will really enjoy this episode because there will be a lot of advices for them.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm sure. I don't hope. I'm sure I know when I hear something. So this was latest episode of It's a DARMAR. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. This is Jude Smith, character concept artist, and he gave some really great lectures. Thank you for having you, Jude.
Thank you.